If music is the food of love, let us feast.
What's going on, people? This is Akala, and this week's classic album, beautiful, beautiful piece of music, Dummy by Portishead. This is what they call trip hop, which I think is what the marketeers, I mean, I don't know who came up with it, but my assumption is the marketeers came up with it as a name for vaguely alternative British musical, left of centre, hip hop influenced music that didn't necessarily centre around the MC. That's my loose definition of that, could be completely wrong. Most summed up by Portishead and Massive Attack. This album here is a great album, debut album. All three Portishead albums I do like. I think are very, very strong. I think if any one of the three were their debut album, we might view them with the nostalgia and greatness that we put on this album, because they haven't put out a weak album, at least in my opinion. But this album still stands out. My personal favourite track is probably Wandering Star, or Numb. You know, I think those two. But then there's Road. See, you know, when you start looking at a track list, and you're like, actually, I just like every song on this album. There isn't. It's one of those albums I would put on and I would never skip. I wouldn't go to Wandering Star. You know, some albums you go to and you listen to your favourite song. I only ever put Dummy on, usually when I'm driving, when I know I've got enough time to listen to the whole album, where I know I'm going to get where I'm going in less than the 45 minutes to an hour, in more than the 45 minutes to an hour it takes to play this whole record. But really, really classic, great album. Really interesting soundscapes, feels almost like the soundtrack to a movie. Vocals are mixed in a really interesting way to me, and they kind of sit in the songs almost as if they are another instrument rather than a vocal. You know, they give that feeling of not really being the center of the song in a kind of traditional way that vocals often have become in pop production. But there's a really good, if you want to get an interesting live rendering of the album, there's a footage of them performing it in New York with a full orchestra, which is just incredible. What's interesting is Portishead, right? So I only learnt maybe 3-4 years ago that Portishead was a place near Bristol, right? Before then I thought Portishead was there was some story behind it. I don't know, some esoteric cult I had no idea about, or something. I had attached all this really cool stuff to the name Portishead because of how their music sounded. And then I stayed at a really budget hotel whilst doing a toilet tour in Portishead, and I was thoroughly disappointed to find out that it was the name of a neighbourhood rather than some esoteric cult that I knew nothing about, which is what I decided it meant for some odd reason. But doesn't take anything away from their contribution as a band. Really, really great album. If you don't know it already, which I'm sure many of you do, I strongly suggest you listen to it. This week's classic album is Dummy by Portishead.
If music is the food of love, let us feast.